There are some big warning signs for the Biden administration and the Democratic Party in general that President Biden could be considering a plan to step down before the end of his presidency, turn the keys to the kingdom over to Kamala Harris, vice president. And by the way, if she doesn't want it, then it would basically fall to Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House. Can you imagine that? She wants it. Can you imagine that scenario for a second? But she's literally one person away from then having the presidency handed to her. But the poll numbers right now for Democrats, for President Biden, the reason he's being pressured to even step down is because of massively low poll numbers, lower than Jimmy Carter, which is really, really bad. In addition to which, his entire agenda appears to be totally crushed. I've seen people refer to him as a lame duck president right now because his agenda is crushed thanks to people like Joe Manchin, who do not want to allow the president's agenda to move forward. Then, and Kamala Harris getting questions about who is actually president of the United States. She got this question when Comedy Central thought it was going to be a fun softball interview. He literally asks her, who's president of the United States? Whose agenda is running the show?
Serious. Who's the superhero that's going to speak against Joe Manchin? No. I want to know who's the real president of this country. Is it Joe Biden or Joe Manchin?
I'm sorry. I interrupted. I don't think the vice president can hear you. It's Simone. I'm so sorry, Charlamagne. We have to wrap.
She can hear me.
You can hear me? Can you hear me now?
So this was all behind the scenes.
Is producers just screaming?
Yeah, so this was all behind the scenes at a Comedy Central recording. And so this was not supposed to air. But the question was, who's the real president, Joe Manchin or Joe Biden? And she flips out about it. And her producer, Kamala Harris's producer, is basically saying, hey, she can't go. She has got to rap. She's got to rap.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
And he's saying she can hear me.
He's like, they're acting like they can't hear me. And he's like, she can hear me. She can hear me. And she says, wait a minute, I'm not going to let this question go unanswered. I need to defend myself.
I can hear you. Oh, so who's the real president of this country? Is it Joe Manchin or Joe Biden, Madam Vice President?
Come on, Charlamagne. It's Joe Biden.
I can't tell sometimes.
No. It's Joe Biden, and don't start talking like a Republican about asking whether or not he's president.
Do you think Joe Manchin is a problem?
It's Joe Biden, and I'm vice president, and my name is Kamala Harris. And the reality is, because we are in office, we do the things like the child tax credit, which is going to reduce black child poverty by 50%, on track to do that. We do things that are about saying that our Department of Justice is going to do these investigations and require that we end chokeholds and have body cameras.
Wow.
It is the work of saying we're going to get lead out of pipes and paint because our babies are suffering because of that. It is the work of saying people who ride public transit deserve the same kind of dignity that anybody else does. So let's improve that system. It is the work of saying that we have got to bring down prescription drug costs because folks who have diabetes.
I want you to know that Madam Vice President, that Kamala Harris, that's the one I like. That's the one that was putting the pressure on people in Senate hearings. That's the one I'd like to see more often out here in these streets.
Wow.
Okay.
Was she campaigning right then?
Well, so the question, there's a lot of rumblings about when President Biden was asked last week whether he would run for president again. And he says, if I'm healthy. And so there were a number of insiders in the Democratic Party that said, whoa, that's a huge sign that he's considering, or he's leaving that as a door for him to say, I'm not fit for office anymore. I'm going to hand over the presidency to Kamala Harris in the next, 6 months, 7 months or less.
I feel like this headline, though, Joe Biden pressured to step down. And then when you read further into it, you realize it's like Democratic strategists that want him to. It's not really necessarily inside his cabinet. And we saw these same types of stories about Trump, too. It's just sort of the media likes to take these up so that we think like, oh, what's going on? There's, it's not all roses in there. So it's interesting. But at the same time, if we follow the arc of the year, right, when 2021 dawned, we thought the media told us Joe Biden was going to save us from Trump because Trump was crazy, because we got these same kind of headlines. And they made us think that Joe Biden was a progressive president. And now they're telling us he's failed. at all of those things because he's not a progressive president, which just says that that entire narrative was always false. Trump was probably pressured to step down. I do believe there were people who wanted, the same way there are people who want Biden to step down, that in the party, not in the cabinet. And then for the media to have set us up to like say that he was going to save us and bring back all of these progressive things when he's furthered the Trump agenda, if not taken it further in many respects when it comes to climate
and immigration.
And so now they're like, oh, he's disappointing us. But really, it's the media that's disappointed us for making us think he was something that he's not. We should know that if we're paying attention.
Well, I mean, he said it himself. Nothing is fundamentally going to change.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. So he's failing. He's not failing on that front. Nothing has changed.
He's doing exactly what the mainstream media wanted. He's doing exactly what CNN wanted, which was to not have Trump. And now that
they didn't want that, but
now that their ratings are in the toilet, they're like, wow, maybe we made the wrong choice. Now we need some controversy. We need Trump back. We need Trump to stir things up again. This is how CNN makes their money.
So these types of headlines are self-serving. Sure, I'm sure there are plenty of Democrats who don't want Joe Biden in office, but that doesn't mean that it's like as internal as it seems.
Well, okay, this week when we saw President Biden's press, he did that 30-minute interview or 20-minute interview with David Muir on ABC, and it was brutal. And he repeatedly just kept. It was pretty bad.
But we had this with Trump too. That's the thing, and the media benefits from it.
Not at this level.
I think at this level, Trump was never able to make a declarative sentence that had a period and a capital
I agree,
letter in
but
the beginning.
If you listen to Biden, it's like complete gibberish, and that was even during his campaign. But
I don't think
I think the difference. It's interesting. Well, the Trump thing, I know what you're saying. I felt like, okay, there were people that were floating this idea that he had like dementia at the beginning of his presidency and all this stuff. But he knows what he's doing. He knows how to play the media like a fiddle. And sure, he can't make a declarative statement and his sentences are always in a weird arc. But at the end of the day, he knows how to press the buttons. He knows what he's doing.
How is this different than what Biden is doing right now?
Let's listen to CNN here. This is where this is shocking. CNN comes out and Jeff Zeleny, who is a very good political reporter, and has been around the White House for many, many years, said that he thinks that there's cognitive decline. He said this on Wolf Blitzer's show. Let's listen to CNN say it.
Repeatedly throughout this interview with David Muir, which was recorded this afternoon, President Biden seems confused and, was confusing the 500 million tests that they've ordered with the 500 million pills. Of course, pills were in the news today with the Pfizer approval of the antiviral. So he corrected himself, but that was one thing that struck out to me. But then simply this administration and the president leading the charge here, really not accepting any responsibility at all for this lack of testing. We've seen these images across the country, long lines, So he
goes on to talk about testing there, but he starts out, kind of dancing, nicely saying it, but he's like, the president's confused. Multiple times in the interview, he's conflating these pills with the tests and pills, this thing and that thing and that thing and this thing. So when you have CNN questioning his cognitive ability, I guess follow the money, right? Follow the money with CNN.
I believe
they'd love to have Trump back in here.
The difference is Trump is ignorant, where Biden is cognitive. Because Biden's not, it's if you watch the way that they put sentences together, it is at least with Trump, you were getting some kind of circle that would come back around, and it was just all about him and all this other stuff. But Biden is like complete word salad to where he's saying things that you cannot make sense of at all.
But he's always been like that.
No,
I interviewed him 10 years ago, and he was like that. He's making a point. You just have to follow a little bit harder to see where it's going.
Watch his speeches.
I think that both of these narratives, and I think that I think it'd be fairly easy to do a content analysis of both men at this time in their presidency and the internal discord and the fact that there's a lot of infighting and nothing actually happening. I think that we'd see that this is a culture of fear. It's a cyclical,
we're in a cycle.
We're in the same cycle. We liked it with Trump. It sort of sold us this superiority, like this person's crazy and we can't rely on them. It gives us as citizens a reason to feel like the government is failing us and look at this failing person. The narrative is the same. It doesn't matter who's sitting in the seat.
Well, you're right about this cycles because look, GOP now optimism growing over a red wave. Well, didn't we just hear about the blue wave under Trump?
Absolutely,
Which,
we
by
did.
the way, didn't happen.
We have to follow the cycles to realize what it's trying to tell us is that we are right to be disappointed in these leaders. They are failing us. Our situation is not ours to take control of, so we can just be dissatisfied and watch the media and keep ourselves in this inflammatory response. And then what does that do? It makes us more powerless because we don't think, well, then I better be in control of my life. Well, then I should take a step beyond government. It does. It's a non-empowering narrative, and it helps to feel like the leader is failing. And we're just repeating the same crap.
Well, I guess maybe to feel that way, but then, I mean, is this leader failing? Is this president's agenda
in the same way the
failing?
previous did? I don't think they are fundamentally different people when it comes to leadership.
I mean, I don't think so either. I mean, look, Trump was a Democrat for, most of his life, right? So this idea that he conveniently put on this, new kind of outfit to,
yes. And so if we, like you chat room and me and you, Clayton, and you, David, think like, oh, they're just all failures, the government's failing us. And we just spin our wheels here without thinking about what we individually can do to make our own lot better, then the government doesn't have to deal with us as individuals. We are just collectively pissed off and doing what the media tells us.
Right. Well, that's the thing. When we become sheep, that's, I think, what we
Yes.
try to teach you here on the show is when you sit there and you are a gaping, wide-mouthed salmon with the remote control in your hand, like just putting on CNN, like watching what they're feeding your brain, like,
and then you feel this way. And then I absolutely went through, like, with all of this inflammation about Trump, like, yeah, that's crazy. He's a womanizer, blah, blah, blah. And then I went through the same thing. Like, if you allow yourself to go through their media cycles, you are not empowering yourself. I mean, I know this. I was, not to brag, I was a research assistant on the book, The Culture of Fear. Like, this is how the media takes us through these things. And we have to realize this or else we won't break the cycle and we'll just keep doing these. I don't know how much more I can make this gesture until you understand.
Look, I worked in the mainstream media for 20 years. I don't anymore, and one of the things that, it be that time of year, it's like, okay, when do we start doing the war on Christmas stories to rile people up?
Yeah.
As Bill O'Reilly liked to say, he wouldn't do a segment on his show unless he could feel it in his gut because then he knew it would resonate with his audience, right? And so, okay, what does that mean? What types of stories then is he going to cover, right? So all of those things are part of this cycle. Every year, you could set an egg timer by it. You know when it's going to come up in the cycle.
Yeah.
During the year. It's going to be a lull during the summer. So you dig into the archives and do some crazy stuff. It's what works.
So I will, people in the chat are saying, how do we break this? I will recommend the book that I was a graduate student and I was the research assistant for Barry Glassner. And the book is called The Culture of Fear. And the subtitle is Why the Media Makes Us Afraid of the Wrong Things. And we specifically did research on things like Halloween candy, like razor blades in Halloween candy, or pedophile priests, or shark attacks, and how the media will make you afraid of these things in cycles for its own profit, right? And so I think this is just another one of our president's crazy. He's losing his mind. He's too old. There's discord in the party. Because that makes sense for the media. But does it make sense for us? I don't know. It just gives us a way to feel like disenchanted.
I had a friend who was also worked at a men's magazine, and he said they would allow enough space from between running the exact same story over and over and over again about men. Picture a men's magazine cover with like a guy talking about abs or best sexual whatever, and those things would come on a rotation, and they would literally, as the editor in chief, they would literally rotate these stories, the exact same ones. And they would just tweak a few minor little things, and they would run the exact same cover story about losing weight and have abs every few months. Do the same thing over and over in a cycle because they knew that when they put these particular headlines, they could sell magazines. So, it's about having awareness of those things in order to be empowered. So we'll see. Hey, is Biden stepping down? Kamala's going to take over the presidency, or is Nancy Pelosi going to be in power?
Oh, geez. Either one of them. Like I would love to have a female president, but those two and Clinton would completely ruin that.
Yeah, to have that be, and also, wouldn't that suck for women too. I mean, I just got to say, I'm
That's
going to
what
put
I'm
this out
saying.
there.
I don't think either of you should.
Hold on, I want to say this. We'll have a discussion about this.
Okay,
Wouldn't this
all
suck
right.
for women?
Excuse me while I hydrate for this discussion. And you tell me what will suck for women, please.
I'm in touch with women, so I know
It would
what
suck to have such warmongering.
I know what sucks
Wall
for them.
Wall Street hungry, rich, disconnected people taking over the country.
Well, that's one thing.
Okay,
But
okay.
that's not what I was thinking.
Please.
That's
No,
one thing. Hold on, let me finish my point here.
It's okay
Continue to
for
hydrate.
men to be those
No,
things.
no, it's not. I don't want
That's
them
what this
either.
show
But
is
if
about.
a woman who were those things, which I'm not going to agree on across the board that all three of those women are those things, but let's say we do. But if a woman is those things, that would reflect poorly on women. But since men are those
reflects
things and
poorly on
currently
men,
are in
too.
power, does that reflect poorly on men?
Heck yeah.
No, it
No, I
doesn't.
mean, well,
It
no.
does
Look,
to
they
me.
keep getting reelected. It does to us on this show. Like I've called President Biden a warmonger. I've called President Obama a warmonger. That's what
it's
they
like
are.
you're looking-
And you continue
you're
to
looking at
bomb innocent
potentially-
people.
You're looking at potentially having the first woman president, so she would have to be good. Otherwise, it would ruin.
Here's my point. Here's the point I was going to make. Instead of a woman going through the normal election cycle and being elected president of the United States overwhelmingly with a popular vote and wins the electoral college, like that's the way that a woman should win the presidency. It shouldn't be that some guy who's cognitively in decline hands it over to a woman. Like, here, you drive now.
Right.
Like, to me, I would want for women to have a President Obama moment, like the first Black American is elected president. And in that way, with that type of response, with that overwhelming number of votes, like that should be the way that it happens. Not like some old white guy hands her the keys. That's my point. Did I surprise you? Did I surprise you with that take?
Yeah, I was ready for a fight, and I'm going to back down on that.
Oh,
So,
see, good.
Okay.
Good for
I was reading the Pope's Mass over the weekend, who says, "Say you're sorry to your spouse more often."
Yes.
That's the key to.
I know she sent me that article this morning. She's like, the Pope said there's 3 key words to a long-lasting marriage. I'm sorry,
Please and thank you.
please, and thank you. And I'm like, are you sending that to me because you're realizing you need to do more of that?
I just thought it was fun fodder. This is where Clayton will take the opportunity
No,
to
but
let me
I
know
just-
that I don't apologize.
I just think for a woman, like it shouldn't be like a sidecar issue. It shouldn't be like, oh, she's the first, because it would always have an asterisk by it.
But we don't put those types of high expectations on a man. Like, because you're the first man in office, you must rise to the occasion. And although Obama did face a lot of that for being the first Black president, right? So the first Black president has to be better because he's the first one. Not that he could just be who he was. He had to prove himself on behalf of Black people and interracial people. And
Yeah, I guess I just don't want like for a woman to get the presidency. I don't want it to be a booby prize.
that is the stupidest thing.
No, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want it to be like a consolation prize. Like, oh, the man couldn't handle it, so here are the keys. Like, I would want her to go to
But
win it.
then that cannot be a reason to say, like, oh, we tried a woman. That's comedy. That's the plot of the 3rd season of Veep, or the 4th season. I don't remember. But then it can't be like, well, we tried that, so we can't have women anymore.
But
because
that's just
that
the way
is
people
sexist.
think, though. It is,
it's
but that's just the
sexist.
way people think. It is sexist for sure.
I don't want the first woman president to have an asterisk by it.
Well, I don't think
Like the way I look at Teddy Roosevelt, right? There's always an asterisk by Teddy Roosevelt. Who is the youngest president in American history? Well, the youngest president was Teddy Roosevelt, but then when you ask the question, who was the youngest president ever elected? That's JFK, right? Because Teddy Roosevelt was vice president and only took over once William McKinley was shot. So he wasn't elected. He was young, but he was. So it's like there's always that little like asterisk, and I wouldn't want that for like who's the first woman who was elected. Oh, that's not this person because she was just handed the keys. It was this person 20 years later because she went through the process.
I think most people are bygones now about Teddy Roosevelt. Most people don't look in the history books and think of this asterisk.
Do you think about it? Like, just feel
I
like
don't
it's
think that's top of mind
such a
for most people.
No, it's not the same. I was just trying to, there's always like a little asterisk by that question. And I wouldn't want that for the first woman president of the United States. I would want it to be like an overwhelming clean win, you know?
But that
it's like
in
the
and
Dodgers,
of itself is sexist expectation.
It's like the Dodgers
it has
winning
to
the
be
World
perfect conditions, or else we don't let entry into this woman.
It's not really. I mean, this is kind of like this whole conversation we're having right now about gender equality as it comes to sports, you know, and anyway, it's like the Dodgers winning the World Series in a COVID year when they play 80 games instead of 162 games and they win the World Series. Like the same thing.
And it's like what you want is you want
That
something.
analogy.
You want somebody that's going to get in office that's going to fundamentally change things. And if a woman got into the office and then nothing fundamentally changed again, then it shows that there's really no difference. When it's like everybody's like, we need a woman president, because they will make a difference, and then they don't. That's what I'm saying. Like it has to be somebody who's going to make fundamental changes. I would like a guy to do the same thing, but
this is
not Kamala Harris, who literally changes with the political winds, and who, she was polling lower than Bernie Sanders. She was polling lower than Andrew Yang. And MSNBC and CNBC wouldn't even put those people on the same television set in their graphics because they didn't want Bernie Sanders or Andrew Yang. They wanted a Kamala Harris because she fits the media mold.
Right.
She fits the the mainstream corporatocracy mold. You know.
Yes.
So, anything else on that point?
I have a lot more on that point, but I would thank you. That's nice of you. I feel like, who's the comedian that makes the joke about why do we have male and female Oscars? Like, because a man is out here out acting a woman. Like, why put gender into those? There's certain things like, okay, we understand why they're separated by gender, although decreasingly in this world, right? But like, why are we having these different standards in acting?
Yeah.
Or,
I could see that.
That kind of thing. Like, oh, Clayton's really out acting me right now. We're playing the same game, and leadership is the same. And I feel like any leader who gets close to that upper echelon is fundamentally the same. You can't play the political game and be that much different than anyone else.
Yeah, I guess we've seen that for 250 years.
Right. And so gender is just one way that we're like spinning the wheels, but really they all are run by corporate interests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It's one big corporation.